Welcome to Native Bidaske, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaske. I'm Levi Rickert, publisher and editor of Native News Online. Every month we have committed throughout this year to do a story about health. They have an episode that really concentrates on health. This month's topic is about respiratory syncytial virus, and it's really commonly known as the RSV infection. And oftentimes the symptoms are a runny nose, decrease in appetite, coughing, sneezing, fever, and wheezing. But in 2% of the cases, it can get really complicated. And why Native News Online feels this is a really important topic for Indian country is that studies reveal that among Native American children, they are 7 times more likely to contact RSV. And sometimes it requires hospitalization. But the good news is that there's a vaccine now that's available to mothers who are pregnant that have a new drug, and it was actually it was approved by the FDA earlier this year. And we have a special guest today that is going to talk about it. And the drug, I will say this, is a Pfizer drug. It's called Abrezvo. And somebody who participated in the trial of this new vaccine is a Cherokee woman who lives out in Colorado. Her name is Tamara Zangrilli. And I hope I said that right. And yes. Tamara, welcome to Native Bidaske. And we just want to have a conversation with you about your participation in this trial and why you felt it was really necessary. But first of all, tell us what tribe you're with.
So I'm a Cherokee member of the Oklahoma Cherokee tribe.
Okay. And you are a medical professional, I understand, living in Colorado?
Yeah, I actually work at Children's Hospital Colorado, which is one of the big reasons why I did participate in the trial. But I work in the psychology department.
Okay. And tell us about your family, how many children you have.
Well, I have the one son. This is our firstborn.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was interesting to be a part of this as a first-time mom. And I have been married to my husband since 2020. We did get married during the pandemic. And then shortly after we had our son.
Okay. So you're pretty brave getting married during the pandemic and all as well. But tell us about how you got selected to be a participant in this trial.
Yeah, so I actually work on a pretty big medical campus, and my doctor's office is right across the street from where I work. And that was actually where the trial was taking place as well. So I think there was a little bit more opportunity with that particular OBGYN's office. And I believe, like I had said, was in my second trimester when they approached me about potentially participating. And I kind of had to think about it for a little bit. They did let me know that I believe the shot would be done during my third trimester. So I kind of spoke with my husband because, you know, he has a say as well. And we kind of discussed what our concerns were, what we thought could potentially be some problems. But we were both kind of on board. We both have a little bit of a vaccine background just because he was in the military. And before I worked in pediatrics, I actually worked for Occ Health, which has a lot of vaccine studies. And so we kind of just thought we had to think about it for a little bit, but we met with the team and for quite a while, for about 2 hours. And afterwards, we decided that this was something. I think at the end of the day, my husband said if it gave me peace of mind to know that our son was potentially protected from something, that he would be on board with it. And I think that's why we move forward.
Mm-hmm. So your family, like even with the COVID-19 vaccine, you weren't hesitant to?
I was not. My husband was a little bit. Okay. He also is a little bit hesitant for my son to get the vaccine, which I completely understand. It's it was a weird time for everybody. So we haven't quite had to decide if we're going to give it to him yet. Once we get there, we'll definitely cross that bridge.
Mm-hmm. So being involved with the medical field, you see the importance of trials and data being collected. And Did that play kind of a factor into your decision?
It did actually. So kind of a funny story. So like I said, I worked in Occ Health and I actually learned about how vaccines were made through that position and watched this really interesting documentary about basically the gentleman that made most of the vaccines we do today. And then right after that, I actually got a position within the cancer unit here at the hospital and worked for a doctor who actually is trialing cancer drugs. And I was always in his lab because that's where his main office is. And it was so fascinating to me just to watch like the process and how they kind of figured these things out and what went into making these, cures and potential like vaccines moving forward. And it really got my interest. And I've always loved science. I've always thought science was like so alive and it's always like kind of changing and turning. And there's always these things to it that people don't think about that I think it's so awesome. And so for me, I was very fascinated in the science of this vaccine. But I think another small part of that, like I kind of mentioned before, was I know RSV. I don't know anybody that has ever been really affected by it, but I know what RSV looks like and how it can potentially be really bad for children. And so, like I said, when my husband said, like, if this just kind of alleviates a little bit of stress from me about our child and what our child could potentially get and his, protecting him in the future. I think that was a really big factor for me to move forward as well for just myself and for other parents, because being a first time parent, it's amazing how much you worry and how, you just want to protect them from everything. And this was a small little piece of that I could give him.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get too far off track here, because I want to talk about your this trial, but I really do admire that you're in the sciences. So often Native American students, they go off in different directions. And I'm such a strong proponent of Native American kids getting into STEM field, because we need scientists, we need doctors, we need dentists, on and on. So congratulations to you on that front. When it comes to the 2 hours, you said it took 2 hours. So what kind of deliberations, what type of conversations took place during that 2 hours?
Yeah, I think for us, so I'm a little bit older. And like I said, this was our first kid. Mm-hmm. So me being a little bit older, we were a little bit worried about complications with having a child at my age, and just making sure that nothing potentially could harm the baby. We were also still in the middle of kind of COVID-ish. So it was a little bit of concerns of if this could somehow affect that, or if this would protect from that, or other small little things. But it was a lot of questions about just like what could potentially go wrong. Realistically, my husband really worried about, somehow affecting my son in a potentially harmful way. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think everybody in the last couple of years has kind of been hit by that. So I think just any type of information that he could get from the doctors to alleviate some of the things that he's possibly read online was really helpful for him. And so I let him ask whatever he needed to ask. And again, like I said, a lot of it was about potential harm. And then we also kind of wanted to know like where they were in the trial, how it had been before, what were some of the outcomes, and then to just potentially like how much longer it was going to be, and then just really learning the ins and outs of this vaccine and really what potentially was in it. Like it's very different from some of the other ones that we get normally today. So just kind of learning anything that we possibly could with them was really, really helpful, actually. And I was really grateful that they sat with us that time, because she was wonderful. She was like, anything else that we need? And even after we were done, she's like, are you sure there's no other questions? And she also gave us like her email and was like, please, if you have anything else that comes to mind, reach out. And the team was fabulous.
That's great. And it worked out well. Tell us a little about the actual trial. What was involved? Was it one shot, multiple shots? What was involved?
Yeah, so it was one shot, actually. Like I said, I believe it was in my third trimester. And after that, it was just it was a couple questions online, I believe monthly at first, and then it randomly, I think, went to about 6 months for myself. And then it went 6 months for my son. When my son was born, they collected a couple, I think some cells or maybe some blood from both of us to make sure that, just to kind of see where things were. And then after that, I believe I had to meet them one last time just to make sure I didn't have any symptoms or there wasn't any, when you get a shot, sometimes you have redness on the site or you have a sore arm. So stuff like that. And then I want to say every 3 months we met with her over my son. And that was for until he hit a year. And that was mainly just to make sure he hadn't been sick. If there was a sickness, that they could kind of write the symptoms down, check his weight, make sure that, everything was gradually going along as it should for such a young child. So it was relatively simple, straightforward, and I had a great time doing it.
How old is your son now?
He's 18 months.
18 months. And what's his name?
Harrison.
And is Harrison a healthy young boy? Or?
He is a very healthy, young, strong boy. He is running around, climbing on everything. He loves to wrestle with my husband. So
that's great.
He's been really great.
And so the result net has been of your shot. He has not experienced any symptoms of the RSV.
He has not had any symptoms of RSV. He did unfortunately get COVID when he was a little bit younger, but
wow.
But I do believe it was a pretty mild case from what we understand. And I like to think that maybe the RSV had something to do with that because it was protecting him, but I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. But so far he really has only been sick that maybe twice with, but none of it was RSV. And we actually did get him tested at one point because they thought it might be, and it wasn't. So, yeah.
So the vaccine works. It was approved by the FDA earlier this year. What advice would you have for other Native parents, and just not necessarily even have to be a parent, I guess, just other Native Americans who may be asked to participate in a trial from a pharmaceutical company?
I think the strongest thing I can always tell people is to ask questions, especially if you aren't sure about something, or you're scared, or you just don't know what's going on. Ask as many questions as you possibly can. I think I was just really lucky in the fact that, my husband is really understanding, and he understood why I wanted to participate, but he had a lot of questions, and I was totally okay with that. I was totally going into that meeting, even if he came out saying, I don't know yet, so can we wait a little bit longer? But, he was totally okay with my decision. I think the more we talk about these things, and the more that we can all be upfront about what it is, or things that we've, because I had a reaction to a vaccine for the first time in my life last 2 years ago. And so going into this, I was like, well, I've had this, so is something else going to happen now? And so I think, again, just mentioning all of that, not being scared to say, I don't know about this because I'm scared. Again, ask as many questions as you can is my biggest advice. Just ask.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for that. And I applaud your participation, because I as a journalist, I encounter this often. There seems to be a lack of data when it comes to Native Americans, and go right down the list: the Caucasian, African Americans, Latinos, and then so often we're called other, but there's a lack of data when it comes to that. But one thing that we do know is that among Native Americans, the children, they contact RSV 7 times the rate of non-Native kids. So thank you very much for your participation. And is there anything else you want to talk about while you're?
No, I would just thank you so much for having me today. I will say that, my mom was a really strong advocate for any type of trials for Native American. Like I said, that's how I identify on most applications, because that's who I am, and I'm very proud of that. So I'm happy to bring a little bit more clarity to that, and hopefully, we can open up that world a little bit more.
Yes, and thank you, Chief McWitch, to you, Tamara, and to our audience. We've been talking to Tamara Zangrilli from Colorado, Cherokee woman, and she participated in a Pfizer trial on a new product that's been approved by the FDA, Breezeville, and it helps stop it's a vaccine for RSV. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and it's Labor Day weekend. Everybody be safe. Have a nice holiday weekend, and kids, as you go back to school, study hard and make our communities very proud of what you're doing in school. So, Chief McWitch, we'll have another Native Bidaske next week.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaske. Chimi Gwech.